Welcome to race number 5 in the DTMRS, the DTMmovies.com racing series. This week we come to you from Silverstone, usually the home of the British Grand Prix. This week is the home of the 5th race in the DTMRS. This week racing we have Hendricks, VA Races, El Nino, Imei Satsuma, Chris Phil, Cobra DX, and Maximilian. Oh! Already we have action. Right after the first turn, looks like Hendricks, of all people, has went to the side of El Nino, who was in the lead at the time. Let's take a look at the replay, see if we can see what happened. Oh, it looks like, did El Nino go into Hendricks, or did Hendricks go into El Nino? We're going to take another look at this from a different angle to see. Hendricks is coming on the outside, and yeah, he does, looks like Hendricks was at fault there. It's hard to believe. Oh, and look at this. He goes in, just barely misses Chris Phil as Chris Phil dives to the inside to avoid the carnage on the track. Let's take a look at it from El Nino. He has nowhere to go. He just tapped from behind. He loses all control. And look at that. Oh, Chris Phil just barely sneaks in there. That could have been a lot worse than it was. Luckily, these drivers in the DTMRS have excellent reflexes, and they were able to avoid the accident up in front of them. Wow, it looks like that's going to put VA Races in the front. He was in 3rd place, but because of that mix-up, VA Races is in the lead. Chris Phil, looks like Maximilian is making a move on Chris Phil. I believe this is for 4th place. Oh, but Maximilian goes wide. Look at that. It looks like he didn't break at all. Let's see if we can take a look at that again. He just taps his brakes, and the rest of the time, He may not be that familiar with this track. Some of these tracks in the DTMRS may be new to these drivers, even though they are world-renowned tracks. Some of these drivers may not have the experience that Maximilian showed there. He just looks like he wasn't expecting that turn to come up, and he just went into the wall. It doesn't look like he hit it that hard, so hopefully he'll still be able to stay in contention. Back on with Hendricks, who once again has to fight his way back up to the front if he can, because as you know, Hendricks in the past few races has had early incidents and has been forced to come up from behind. And look at this. Oh, he was putting a lot of pressure on Chris Phil and Imei Satsuma. Neither one of those guys wanted to give up the spot, and it ended up making both of them go off. Oh, that's what happens when you don't want to give up position so bad you're willing to take yourself out of the race to hold it, and that looks like exactly what happened between Imei Satsuma and Chris Phil. These DTMRS cars all are built to the same spec. They're 500 horsepower with 2,400 pounds minimum weight. Here is Cobra DX, a newcomer to the DTMRS, coming a little bit late in the game because we only have one more race in the season, but he's doing a pretty good job. Right now he's up in the 2nd place between VA Races and Hendricks, who's moved up to 3rd. Oh, and Hendricks has come around the outside of Cobra DX, a very nice move on both of their parts. Like, Cobra DX decided it wasn't worth get into a mix-up with Hendricks. He just wants to try to hold that position. Hopefully he'll be able to hold on to 3rd, but here's somebody in front who has not made any mistakes so far. VA Races in that DTMmovies.com sponsored Ferrari, far out in the lead. After making it past that first incident in the first turn, he is taken off, but I think I saw Hendricks a little bit farther behind. Hendricks may be catching up. He's already moved up into 2nd place after only, I believe, 1.5 laps after that incident. Here back in 4th place, we have El Nino, and behind him is the Imei Satsuma. These two guys are driving exceptionally well, being in the middle of the pack. They are proving that even if you are in the middle, you still got to fight for those points. They're driving just as hard as if they were in the front of the pack. El Nino, of course, driving that supercharged Volkswagen GTI. Behind him, and another Volkswagen GTI, Imei Satsuma. Looks like he has finally been able to tame all 500 horsepower of that Volkswagen, because in the past, Satsuma has had a lot of trouble keeping that thing on the track, but he is doing extremely well this race. Here's Cobra DX, looks like he's slowly falling a little bit farther behind. Chris Phil has him in his sights. I don't know if Chris Phil's going to be able to get around him, but he looks like he's gonna try pretty hard because he's coming up on him fast. Chris Phil came back after a short hiatus in the DTM race. He came back last race, did very well. It looks like he's trying to improve upon that now. He's coming around the inside of Cobra DX. Is he going to be able to make this pass? He's on the inside. Cobra DX powers through it. Oh, but he misses the braking point. Oh, see, that's experience once again rearing its head. Cobra DX did not want to give up that position, so he just kept his foot down. That's not the right thing to do in that position. Chris Field knew what was coming up. He's just put the pressure on, and the pressure got to Cobra DX, and next thing you know, he's off the track. Here's somebody who isn't under a whole lot of pressure. VA Races up front, DTMmovies.com Ferrari. Hendricks is getting closer though. Looks like Hendricks is going to be making a move on him pretty soon if he keeps up like this. He is putting in a little bit slightly faster lap times than VA Races, so he has moved his way back up. That incident did not damage his car very much that he had at the beginning of the race, and he's going to be giving it his all to try to take the win in this race. Hendricks is the current points leader in the DTMRS Championship Series. He's won a lot of races, and he's going to try to add another one to his another notch on his belt, so to say. Let's take a look at the rankings. We have VA Races currently in first place. Hendricks is in second place. Maximilian quietly but steadily in third place. Chris Phil, fourth place. El Nino and Ahmed Satsuma, fifth and sixth. And Cobra DX rounds out in seventh place. Maximilian has been driving a very quiet race except for that off that he had in the beginning. Other than that, he's just been slowly and steadily going around the course trying to make as few mistakes as possible after that first one. After that first mistake he made, and he's doing quite well for him. He's up in third place. We have Ahmed Satsuma coming up behind. I believe he's coming up behind El Nino. El Nino's still ahead of him. It's going to be interesting to see if he's able to get past El Nino, because El Nino drives a very conservative race, and if he drives too conservative, I believe Ahmed Satsuma will be able to get around him. But here's somebody who's not driving conservative at all. Look at this. Hendricks is taking it to VA Races in the worst way possible. Look at this. On his bumper, these guys are going around these turns 120 miles an hour. Hendricks is just beating that Subaru, trying to get every ounce of speed out of it around that corner, catching up behind VA Races. But that Ferrari that VA Races is driving is just powering through the straights. I don't think Hendricks is going to be able to catch him on the straights. Hendricks, that Subaru is four-wheel drive, so looks like on the corners he's probably going to be able to catch up. But the power that VA Races has in that Ferrari may be enough to keep him out ahead. VA Races has been the perennial second place to Hendricks, and I don't think he wants to repeat that placing again, so he's going to be giving it his all to try to stay in front of Hendricks, and he's doing a very good job of it. Look at VA Races trying to find the fastest way around the track, but at the same time he can't. If he drives the perfect line, Hendricks is going to be able to exploit that and take him on the inside or the outside whenever VA Races has to slow down. So he has to drive an offensive and a defensive race at the same time. A lot must be going through the head of VA Races at this point, because he knows that Hendricks is breathing down his neck, and the slightest mistake, Hendricks is going to pounce. Because he's already moved up from last place all the way back in the second, and you know that he's not going to let one car. Oh, here he makes his move. Hendricks goes around the outside. VA Races got a little bit loose there. Oh, but the VA Races comes back on the outside. This is an incredible race, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot believe. Look at these side by side go around this turn. VA Races not giving up anything to Hendricks. Hendricks is not giving up anything to VA Races. On the inside of VA Races is going to try to make it. No, Hendricks is currently in the lead. Hendricks took away. No, VA Races takes back the lead. This is an incredible race. And Hendricks dives into the pit. Hendricks dives into the pit at the very last second. That was an incredible move. All the strategy that must be going through Hendricks' mind at this point. He knows that VA Races is going to do everything possible to keep him from getting in front. And Hendricks wants to put some space between him and VA Races. So he decided to dive into the pit to the last second. Oh, I think Hendrick